The alarm goes off at 6:30. Same as yesterday. The shower runs hot. The coffee brews. Your phone lights up, 14 unread emails, a weather alert you swipe away, a news push about a flu cluster you don't open. None of it feels urgent. None of it is supposed to. The morning routine doesn't pause for a scratchy throat. A daughter argues about the jacket draped over the chair. She won't need it. It's not even cold. The radio finishes the weather. For a moment, half a second, the host mentions the flu cluster again. And then it's gone. Back to traffic. No one at the table looked up. The father feels it first, a dull ache in his shoulders, a scratch at the back of his throat. He barely registers the radio, something about a flu cluster at 3 hospitals. Background noise. The kind of unimportant detail you hear and immediately forget. He figures it's nothing. He's been working long weeks. He can't miss today's presentation, so he goes. By Wednesday, half the office is gone. By Friday, the urgent care waiting room has no chairs left. The cough that started as a scratch has multiplied into a chorus, and the shelf where the fever reducers used to be bare wood. You check 3 stores, all the same. The same thought crossed every desk in that building this morning. I'm fine. It's just a cold. I'll push through. No one coordinated these thoughts. They didn't need to. The rationalization was the same because the instinct was the same. This is how an outbreak actually begins. Not with sirens, not with a declaration. With hundreds of people in the same building making the same ordinary decision at the same time. This video shows you precisely how it happens, stage by stage, and what you can do at each one. The spillover doesn't announce itself. In rural Bangladesh, date palm sap is collected overnight in clay pots hung beneath tapped trees. The sap is sweet, nutritious, a staple. And in the dark above those pots, fruit bats feed from the same rims, unseen, unnoticed. One drinks, another drinks, every night. The same pots, the same trees. A virus crosses from bat to sap in a single sip. At sunrise, the sap is ladled into a cup and drunk. This has happened every morning for years. There is no bite, no wound, no moment of contact anyone would register. The bat never touched the man. The virus didn't need it to. This is where outbreaks actually begin. Between 60 and 75% of all emerging human diseases are zoonotic. They originate in animals and spill over into us. And the crossover almost never happens through a dramatic encounter. It doesn't happen through a bite. It happens through a morning drink. A child playing near the wrong tree stump. A farm built where the forest used to be. None of these feel like a threat. All of them are. The 2013 Ebola outbreak killed over 11,000 people. It was traced to a single 2-year-old playing near a bat-infested tree stump in a part of Guinea where the forest had recently been cleared. Nipah virus carries a fatality rate above 70%. In Bangladesh, its primary vector is raw date palm sap contaminated overnight by foraging bats. The spillover requires nothing more dramatic than a morning beverage. Here is what matters. The real risk sits at the boundary, where a wet market opens at the edge of a forest, where a farm pushes into cleared land, where raw foraged food passes from hand to mouth. These are not exotic places. They are everyday ones, and knowing where they are is what keeps you safe. It is not about avoiding bats. It is about knowing which routines cross the line. This is the moment the math turns against you. A commuter boards a train at rush hour. They feel fine. They look fine. No cough, no fever, no visible sign of illness. and no one, including them, has any idea they are already shedding virus with every breath. This is how one spillover becomes population-wide spread. A pathogen that's infectious before it's symptomatic gets a running start. The host moves through transit hubs and open-plan offices while feeling completely fine. Even after the host is home and symptomatic, the pathogen persists. Respiratory aerosols hang in poorly ventilated indoor air for minutes to hours. Something as mundane as walking across a carpet can resuspend settled viral particles 7 feet away and 6 feet into the air. On plastic and glass under cold indoor conditions, certain viruses remain infectious for up to 21 days. This creates what epidemiologists call the denominator problem. Because mild and asymptomatic cases go entirely unrecorded, authorities only ever see the severe cases arriving at hospitals. The total number of infections, the denominator, is unknown in real time. Every case count reported on the news is a historical snapshot of where the pathogen was 2 to 4 weeks ago. The number was wrong the moment it was published. Even a modest reproduction number compounds fast. Measles sits at 12 to 18, but a novel respiratory pathogen at 3 still achieves runaway exponential growth if left unchecked. The math doesn't wait for the announcement. Treat early murmurs of a mystery illness as a leading indicator. The real spread is already larger than whatever is officially confirmed. The person at the center cubicle has been staring at the same spreadsheet for 20 minutes. Their temples throb. Their shoulders ache. They have not taken a sick day in 3 years. They are not about to start now. Not for what feels like a cold. Not when the deadline is Friday. The internal monologue sounds like this. It's just allergies. I've been working 60-hour weeks. It's just the change in weather. I'll push through. The brain does this automatically. When the evidence is ambiguous, it reaches for the least alarming explanation every time. Psychologists call this normalcy bias. It's allergies. It's stress. It's the change in weather. Anything but the thing that would require you to stop. Nearly half of symptomatic healthcare workers kept working during COVID. If the people trained to recognize illness can't override the instinct, nobody can. This isn't a personal failing. Your threat detection system evolved to spot visible danger, lesions, odor, disfigurement. It has no sensor for a virus. Someone shedding enough pathogen to infect an entire coffee shop looks exactly like someone who isn't. They sound the same. They move the same. The smoke detector never fires because there's no smoke, only a fire that's already spreading. The same trap catches the physicians too. A doctor sees flu symptoms and writes flu. The evidence shifts. The fever pattern doesn't fit. The patient isn't responding, but the diagnosis doesn't shift with it. The mind anchors to its first answer and holds. The people trained to spot this early have the same blind spot as everyone else. So set your stay-home threshold now, before you're sick, while your thinking is still clear. Don't wait until the pressure is on to make a decision you should have already made. Somewhere in an office no one visits, a screen is ticking upward. Cough complaints, fever complaints, 2 trend lines creeping above a flat gray baseline. The analyst watching them has been staring at flat lines for years. These lines are not flat anymore, and they are not stopping. This is what finally notices the pattern. Syndromic surveillance systems like Essence continuously aggregate emergency room chief complaints, over-the-counter pharmacy sales, school absences, and ambulance dispatch logs. When these data streams deviate from historical baselines, the system flags a statistical anomaly. It doesn't identify the pathogen. It just notices that something is wrong. Ambient microphones in ER waiting rooms now count coughs. Aggregated cough counts correlate with outbreak spikes faster than fever-based detection alone, which tells you how late we already are. Even with these systems, the lag between the first case and the official alert runs 12 to 40 days. By the time someone declares an outbreak, the pathogen has already passed through several cycles of human hosts, infecting, replicating, spreading, infecting again. The alarm rings true. It is never on time. Don't wait for the official declaration. By the time it arrives, the window has closed. Your real early warning system is informal. Empty pharmacy shelves, packed urgent care waiting rooms, a run of absent coworkers that doesn't resolve in a day or two. Those signals precede the announcement by weeks. You would think the alarm changes everything. It doesn't. The declaration is not the end of the danger. It is the beginning of a different one, and this one has nothing to do with the virus. It has to do with what stops working, when enough of the people who run things don't show up. The traffic lights went first, then the gas pumps, then the grocery shelves, not empty, but not being restocked either. The water is still running because the towers still have pressure. But no one is at the treatment plant adjusting the chlorine balance. No one is at the pumping station watching the gauges. The systems haven't failed. The people who run them aren't there. And that is the same thing. Modern systems don't run on machines. They run on the people who know how to run the machines. Federal planning assumes that during the peak of a severe outbreak, 40% of those people won't be there. When they're gone, the systems don't fail dramatically. They just stop being maintained. And a system that isn't being maintained is a system that's already failing. There is a fixed order to what breaks. Healthcare goes first, not because the virus overwhelms it, but because the staff stops showing up. Hospitals move to crisis standards. Elective procedures get canceled. Then the supply chain seizes. Truck drivers don't report. Warehouse crews don't report. Port workers don't report. And the grocery shelves don't refill. Not because there's no food, because there's no one to move it. Here's the absenteeism ladder. 15 to 20% is minor retail hiccups. 25 to 30% closes schools and strains transit. 35 to 40% puts water purification and grid stability at genuine risk, because the trained operators who balance the chemistry at a treatment plant simply aren't there. Finally, the deepest layer goes. Internet routing errors go uncorrected. Traffic systems fail. Water pressure drops. Not because anything was attacked. Because the people who handle the minor faults every day, the ones whose absence means those faults compound, aren't at their stations. In 2019, the US government simulated a novel respiratory virus. They called it Crimson Contagion. The exercise predicted overloaded hospitals, absent workers, broken supply chains, in that order. The results were written down. The vulnerabilities were documented. And then, months later, it happened. Almost exactly as the simulation said it would. The move to make now is simple. Reduce what you depend on before you have to. Water, fuel, cash, medication refills. Not because collapse is certain. Because the supply chains you rely on are already fragile, and that's on a normal day. You don't want your ability to function tied to a system that can't handle a Wednesday, let alone a crisis. The kitchen again. Same morning light, same coffee, but the father isn't checking a phone anymore. He's checking a battery-powered radio. The coffee is still hot, and he is calm. Not because nothing happened, because he knew what to do before he needed to do it. That is the difference between the two kitchens. The sequence is now visible. It begins at a boundary, a wet market, a palm grove, a freshly cleared forest. A virus crosses from animal to human. No one notices. It spreads through people who feel fine. No one sounds the alarm. By the time the alert goes out, the pathogen is weeks ahead. And then the real cascade begins, not biological but infrastructural. Traffic lights go dark. Shelves stop refilling. Water pressure drops. Not because the virus touched any of these things, because the people who maintain them didn't show up. The collapse people fear is not a single catastrophic event. It is an accumulation of ordinary absences. One person, then another, then enough. That is what breaks the system, not the virus, the empty chair. Real readiness here isn't a shopping list. It's systems literacy, recognizing which stage you're standing in, and having already made the decisions that stage requires before you're standing in it. You don't need to be an epidemiologist to read the stage you're standing in. You just need to know what the sequence looks like, and be willing to act before the declaration arrives. Subscribe to Gridfall Survival for more systems literacy lessons. Prepare, adapt, outlast.